said, I was forced to write it. And he also presented an excuse and sought maafi, forgiveness. As I said, from my side, everything is forgiven. However, the mistake should be publicized. Tawbah should be according to the extent of the error. Yes, from my side, you're forgiven. On the day of judgment, I will not hold you responsible. What better example of good character can there be than this? Nevertheless, Hazrat Mufti Sahib Rahmatullah also made the masala known to him after he had brought up the topic. Thereafter, the alim used to visit Hazrat Mufti Sahib very often. And Hazrat Rahmatullah spoke to him freely. Never once did he ask him about the fatwa. And when Hazrat Rahmatullah visited Saharanpur, he'd also make sure he visited all the ulama there as well. Mufti Nizamuddin Sahib, the head of the fatwa department of Darul Deoband, had many differences with Mufti Sahib in many masail. And they didn't see eye to eye on some topics. However, in spite of this, there always existed the greatest amount of respect between them. After Hazrat Mufti Mahdi Hassan passed away, the Shura Committee of Darul Deoband appointed Hazrat Mufti Mahmud Sahib as the head of the Department of Fatawa. However, Hazrat Rahmatullah Alayh handed over his position to Mufti Nizamuddin Sahib, who at first turned down the offer, saying, when the committee has appointed you, how can I accept? Hazrat Mufti Sahib then said, if you don't accept, then I'll leave Darul and go away. Hazrat Mufti Nizamuddin Sahib was then forced to accept this position. And so Mufti Sahib Rahmatullah Alayh worked under Mufti Nizamuddin Sahib and in every way showed that he was his subordinate. Hazrat Mufti Nizamuddin Sahib used to say, Hazrat Mufti Mahmud Sahib's informality and humor has put a veil over his taqwa and piety. Hazrat Moulana Shah Masjid Khan Sahib Rahmatullah Alayh, the Khalifa of Hazrat Hakim ul Ummat Thanvi Rahmatullah Alayh, was a companion and a contemporary of Hazrat Mufti Sahib in his student days. But obviously Mufti Mahmud Sahib had khilafat from Hazrat Sheikh Rahmatullah Alayh, who was much junior to Hazrat Sheikh Hazrat Thanvi Rahmatullah Alayh. And Moulana Masjid Khan Sahib had ijazat from Hazrat Moulana Ashraf Ali Thanvi Rahmatullah Alayh. But they were both contemporaries. Hazrat Mufti Sahib was 1 or 2 years ahead of him in madrasa. Generally, a person is very informal with his close friend, no matter how great a buzrug he may become. But the respect between these two had for each other is truly enviable. During their student days, they were quite informal with each other. But as soon as Thanvi Rahmatullah Alayh had given ijazat or khilafat to Hazrat Mufti Sahib, Hazrat Moulana Masjid Khan Sahib, Hazrat Mufti Sahib began honoring him and abandoned all forms of informality. After completion, Hazrat Moulana Masjid Khan Sahib intended to go to Thana Bawa and spend some time in the company of his Sheikh. Hazrat Mufti Sahib carried his bedding and they both went to Thana Bawan by foot. Someone beautifully said, in the veil of helplessness is hidden the height of your perfection, in humility is hidden your high position. It was almost impossible for Hazrat Moulana Mufti Mahmud Sahib to pass Jalalabad and not meet Moulana Masjid Khan Sahib, even if it was for only a few minutes. Once Mufti Mahmud Sahib returned from a long journey, he'd undertaken for the treatment of his eyes. On his return, he went by bus to Janjana to visit his daughter and other close relatives. Jalalabad was on the way. The bus stopped near the madrasa en route from Nanotwa. There were no rickshaws available. From the bus stop to Hazrat Moulana Masjid Khan Sahib's home was quite a distance. And this humble servant, Mufti Farooq Sahib, told Hazrat Moulana Ibrahim Sahib, rickshaws aren't available from here. We may get off at the bus rank where we'll be able to get a rickshaw. That will be easier. Mufti Sahib heard me saying this. He then asked Moulana Ibrahim Sahib what the matter was. Hazrat Moulana Ibrahim informed him about the discussion. Hazrat Moulana Mufti Sahib replied, no bhai, we'll get off right here. We should also walk a little when going to visit the pious. They were contemporaries. But still, he's making that extra mujahada. In fact, we should have walked from Deoband. If we were not able to do that, then shouldn't we at least walk from here? Mufti Farooq Sahib says, when I heard this, I was shocked. Was this a devoted, sincere murid going to visit his sheikh? Or was he a friend going to visit his companion? Then he says, we don't even think of such etiquettes when visiting our sheikhs, let alone our friends. Our condition is such that we're slaves of our desires, our own motives, and we desire fame. To understand these salient and noble actions of these saintly personalities is difficult. We can't attain this unless we do not annihilate our desires and exert ourselves purely in the pleasure of Allah Almighty. Now let us look on the other side. Moulana Masjid Khan Sahib was informed of Hazrat Mufti Sahib's arrival. He immediately stood up, came outside to meet him, who by that time he had reached there. He then embraced Hazrat Mufti Sahib, kissed his hand, took Hazrat by the hand, led him into the house and requested him to sit on his bed. Thereafter, a very informal conversation followed. As Mufti Sahib was departing, Moulana Masjid Khan Sahib also came out to bid him farewell. On another occasion, when Mufti Sahib visited Jalalabad, there was the same mutual love and respect shown for each other. Moulana Masjid Khan Sahib inquired about many masail and he showed Hazrat Mufti Sahib his wudu khana. his bathroom. He's asked him masail pertaining to cleanliness in taharat. He also asked some questions relating to salam and the reply to salam. Once, Mufti Farooq Sahib says, I went to Jalalabad to visit Mufti Moulana Masjid Khan Sahib. And I can still feel the pleasure from how he inquired about Mufti Sahib. The words are more or less like this: how is our respected and honorable Mufti Sahib? And he repeated it 3 times in a loving and warm manner. Mufti Sahib and Moulana Masjid Khan Sahib also had differences in some masail. Yeah? For example, in the masala of shura and administration, Moulana Masjid Khan Sahib had published a kitab by the name Ihtimam and Shura. Ihtimam and Shura. And Mufti Mahmud Sahib was also published on the same topic. And his kitab was called Shura and Ihtimam. So one book is called Ihtimam and Shura, and the other book is called Shura and Ihtimam. And they had both opposing views. This masala became the subject of discussion throughout the country, but it didn't change the affection and respect that these two saintly personalities had for each other. In Kanpur, Mufti Sahib was the head ustad and Mufti and Shaykh al-Hadith. One of the teachers teaching in the madrasa had poor teaching abilities. And he used to speak ill of Hazrat Mufti Mahmud Sahib and the principal during lessons. He was an elderly ustad and in the habit of using vulgar language. He was jealous and envious of Hazrat Mufti Sahib's popularity and acceptance. But Hazrat Mufti Sahib maintained an attitude of budbari, forbearance, and he never reprimanded him. Instead, Hazrat used to even teach the ustad's kitab, so the students are not deprived. Nevertheless, he continued to give this ustad a kitab or two to teach with a full salary. Despite all of this, he didn't desist from his actions, and so Mufti Sahib was forced to stop him from teaching, but he continued paying his salary for 1 entire year. When he wrote to Hazrat Mufti Sahib demanding an explanation for suspending his teaching, Hazrat replied, "You've deprived the students from your own good, and I wish that they're also saved from your evil." Through the insistence of Hazrat Moulana Fakhruddin Sahib, the Shaykh al-Hadith down Deoband, Mufti Mahmud Sahib agreed to teach Bukhari Sharif. A certain teacher had the desire to teach Bukhari, and he also began harassing Mufti Sahib greatly. He would instigate the students to make objections and flood him with unnecessary questions when he was teaching, thereby disrupting the lessons and impeding progress. Hazrat was well aware of his objectives. When his ustad did not achieve his objective, he resorted to sihr, any witchcraft. As a result, Hazrat developed a bout of uncontrollable hiccups. He also tried other schemes to harm Hazrat Mufti Sahib, but Mufti Sahib didn't mention a word through all of this. If Hazrat Rahmatullah Alayhi met him on the road, he'd greet him with salam and shake his hands. If any person mentioned anything about him, Hazrat would beckon him to stay quiet, saying, "He's my elder." Hazrat Mufti Mahmud Sahib wasn't obstinate in his views, and he wasn't stubborn when he came to his views. He'd write a fatwa, show them to others to check, examine. He would not feel it against his dignity to show students his fatwa for scrutiny. If the fatwa was an important one, he'd give it to various ulama and muftis, saying, "If there's any mistake, then let me know." And if any person had any suggestion, he'd gladly listen to it. And if anyone made a valid objection against him, against the fatwa or some of it, Mufti Sahib would immediately accept it and most happily correct the fatwa, pardoning without being asked for pardon. Once a person had committed a grave error and caused great harm to Mufti Sahib, he immediately forgave him. That person requested him a few times to pardon him for the inconvenience and trouble he had caused. Hazrat replied, "All is forgiven, there's no room in my heart for ill feelings. In fact, I had forgiven you without you even asking me." Once a scribe had delayed the writing of Fatwa Mahmudiyah for a considerable time. And Mufti Sahib's about maybe 20 volumes, his Fatawa, called Fatawa Mahmudiyah. So he had it compiled, and the scribe, the Katib, he delayed writing it. He continued promising to do the work, which he never did. This caused Hazrat Mufti Sahib great pain. When Hazrat Rahmatullah Alayhi visited Meerut, he met the scribe and reprimanded him. And when this humble servant, Mufti Farooq Sahib, visited Deoband, Hazrat said to him, "On my return from Meerut to Deoband, I made dua for the scribe in lieu of that word which I mentioned." There's only 3 pages left. Shall I finish it? Otherwise we won't finish it next week. Welfare towards rivals and antagonists. Hazrat Rahmatullah Alayhi not only refrained from taking revenge on those who had done wrong to him and caused discomfort to him, but he also immediately forgave them. He made dua for them and even took care of them by giving them valuable advice. Indeed, this is a sign of lofty spiritual rank, which Allah bestowed to His slaves. After the Anbiya, it is the Siddiqeen who enjoy a share of this position. During the days of turmoil and ikhtilaf in Mazahir Ulum, one person was actively involved in speaking bad of Hazrat Mufti Sahib and the elders. On one occasion, when he had publicly uttered such undesirable and inappropriate words, a close khadim of Hazrat who was present felt very hurt and became angry at that person. When Hazrat Mufti Sahib met this khadim, he said to him, I focused my attention towards your heart but found it tied in a knot. When Hazrat Mufti Sahib meant was that he should not even have ill feelings for that person as well, since this was a cause of being deprived of blessings and obstruction to spiritual progress. What an open and clear heart Hazrat possessed. I once read a poem, He is not our friend, may Allah rain, he who is not our friend, jo hamare dost na ho, may Allah rain on him his showers of friendship. He who caused grief to us, may he have comfort in abundance. He who throws thorns into our path out of enmity, may the garden of this life be full of blooming flowers. At that time I, yani Mufti Farooq Sahib, had only thought of it as mere poetry having no link with reality. But examining Hazrat's life, I realized that there are people befitting such poems. The character and manner of these personalities were the personification of the hadith, join relations with those who sever relations with you, and pardon those who wrong you, and be good to those who do evil towards you. Mufti Zahirul Islam Sahib relates an incident during the days when he was a student in Kanpur. One man had developed many personal grievances against Hazrat and began antagonizing Hazrat openly. He even went to the extent of making another person feel disillusion towards Hazrat Mufti Sahib and convinced him to murder Hazrat Mufti Sahib. He then fixed the night in which would carry out this action. Normally Hazrat's door would be closed at night, but on this particular night Hazrat Mufti Sahib left it open. A khadim wished to close the door, but Hazrat said tonight is a night to leave it open. What great tawakkul and reliance he had on Allah Almighty that there was no shadow of fear. Some students who were aware of the situation volunteered to stand guard, but Hazrat didn't allow them to do so. The students were furious with the person who made the threat. But Hazrat Mufti Sahib strongly stopped them from taking revenge or saying anything harsh to him. Through Allah's grace and help, he did not even have the courage to go to Hazrat's room, let alone attempt to carry out his evil intention. Once he put up posters in several places with objections and false accusations against Hazrat. Hazrat's Khuddam intended to reply, but he stopped them. On the other hand, Hazrat Rahmatullah Alayhi would personally go to his home, meet him and inquire about his well-being. He'd also include him in Mashwara. And Hazrat would take him to the elders of Deoband, Saharanpur and Raipur and pay for his travelling expenses. He assisted him in every way he could. When he was in financial difficulty, Hazrat arranged for him to start a business, and this became a great financial burden for Hazrat Mufti Sahib himself. In short, Hazrat treated him like a close friend. This sublime and beautiful character melted away his enmity and replaced it with such deep love and affection that he was prepared to sacrifice his life for Hazrat. And this incident is an example of the countless stories in Hazrat's life when he portrayed such noble attributes. For the sake of brevity, we suffice with this incident. Last story. Once Hazrat Rahmatullah Alayhi came to Gangor from Kanpur. When he reached home, his cousin mentioned to him that the neighbor wanted to speak to him urgently. Hazrat Rahmatullah Alayhi gave him permission to enter. He started off his talk by saying that everyone has differences and enmity, but the enmity must never reach a point of taking someone's life. Hazrat Rahmatullah Alayhi interrupted him by saying, "Can you clarify yourself please? I do not understand what you're saying." This was always Hazrat's habit, that he never gave any answer if he was not clear about a question. The person continued saying that a certain person in his family had fallen ill and had then passed away. He then attributed his passing away to the fact that Hazrat Mufti Sahib had given him a ta'aweez. Hazrat Rahmatullah immediately recited Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un and astaghfirullah. He then said, "I want to make it very clear to you that this is an allegation against me. I did not make any such ta'aweez, and if you don't want to believe me, then I cannot do anything." Thereafter, Hazrat Mufti Sahib Rahmatullah explained that there are two things to keep in mind. One is huququllah and the other is huququl ibad. If anyone accuses you of huququllah, then there is no need to react or clarify anything in this, as this matters between you and Allah Ta'ala. For example, if someone says that you drank wine or you don't perform salah, but if it's between you and Allah, you don't need to clarify. You know if it's untrue. If someone accuses you regarding huququl ibad, the rights of the slave, then you have to clarify yourself and explain the truth. This is your responsibility. If they accept your explanation, well and good, and if they do not accept it, then do not enter into a dispute or quarrel. What an easy way to solve confusions. The other third book to read is Hazrat Sheikhul Hadith Moulana Zakir Rahmatullah Alayh's Abbiti. In the 6th volume, towards the end of the 6th volume, there's an entire chapter about the Mashaykh, how they dealt with ikhtilaf, how they dealt with jagra and ikhtilaf on lots of issues. But the main thing was they kept the conversation going, and they didn't make it personal, and they wouldn't talk frivolously. And at the end of the day, the reality is, as Moulana Abdul Hafiz Sahib Rahmatullah Alayhi says, the house where there's jagra taking place, the bachche ki tarbiyat bhi idhar udhar ho jati hai. Awar pani, they become awargi. They become here and there. So, when the family is united, the children's tarbiyat is done. When it comes to the house and the edifice of Islam, when there's jagra and ikhtilaf between masjids and masjids, imam and committees and imams, and then madrasas within the khankas, pirbais and pirbais, round a rose, there's always a rose, but round the rose is lots of thorns. Yeah, you see all the situation. Then what happens is, the house of Islam becomes weak as well. And then when that becomes weak, then the deen gets nuksan. So the way to, and at the end of the day, people have differences. We are all different characters. We all have different viewpoints and perspectives. But those perspectives and viewpoints should be kept in perspective, so that there is no harm for the greater good, which is deen of Islam. Allah Almighty give us all the tawfiq to purify ourselves, purify our hearts. There be zikr for a few minutes. Subhanallah bihamdihi, subhanakallah muhammadik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. MashaAllah. Salam wa rahmatullah. Stay, you can stay if you want. So the zikr that we do is a loud zikr. Our mashaykh say that the plentiful zikr of Allah Almighty is the easiest way to purify the heart. There are different ways of purifying the heart, but the dhikr of Allah Almighty is the easy way and the mu'athar way, the effective way of purifying the heart. And the plentiful dhikr of Allah Almighty should be done. The heart becomes black with sins is only by overflowing the heart with goodness and khair that we're able to damp out the blackness and purify it and enlighten it with the nur of Allah Almighty. So the zikr that we'll do is La ilaha illallah, 100 some illallah and Allah. It's only for this majlis unless you have an ijazah from the Shaykh. So to begin with, everyone can read Qul huwallahu ahad a few times and then we'll begin. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Qul huwallahu ahad. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. La ilaha illallah, 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 la ilaha illallah. Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. La ilaha illallah, 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 la ilaha illallah. Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. La ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha إلا الله لا إله 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 إلا الله محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا إله إلا الله 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 محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا إله إلا الله 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 سيدنا ونبينا وحبيبنا وشفينا وسندنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم إلا الله 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 لا إله إلا الله سيدنا ونبينا وحبيبنا وشفيعنا وسندنا ومولانا محمد عبده ورسوله الله 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 Allah, 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 La ilaha illallah, Sayyiduna wa Nabiyyuna wa Habibuna وشفيعنا وسندنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Inshallah, carry on next week. Jazakallah.